So I thought we'd talk about the fact that the state won't protect you because, like a lot of people, I saw the footage of the cops at the recent shooting in Texas, standing around doing nothing except stopping the parents moving in. And for this segment, let's promote something that's, less weird for this segment, I thought, which would be the Gold Tier Zoom call. So we're going to go and talk about this afterwards at 3:30, of course, UK time with the Gold Tiers. And I know there are a lot of guys there who were either in the military or law enforcement in the US as well. So it'll be interesting to have their takes on this.
Yeah.
If you're watching this on YouTube, this is part of the reason you should definitely go and subscribe and get access like this. Otherwise, we shall get into the story. So if we go to the next link here, this is a video Carl sent me this morning from Mr. Obvious, looking at some of the stuff that doesn't add up about this shooting, specifically the fact that the guy has no driving license and yet drove the truck there. He was outside for 12 minutes before going in, and the police just seemed to nothing going on there. No one was spooked by that. There's also the fact that he managed to get $4,000 worth of guns and then $1,000 in ammo as well.
Wow.
Even though he's working at Wendy's, is extremely poor. But to put those aspects aside, I just want to go through what we definitely know for sure. And it's horrific. And frankly, it just shows that the state will absolutely not protect you under any circumstances. They do not care. So if it goes to the next one, we can see the incompetent planning from the people in charge here. So they say, at a press conference on Thursday afternoon, Victor Escalon, the regional director for the Department of Public Safety in South Texas, said Salvador Ramos walked through an unlocked door unobstructed and there was no guard readily available. So there was no ability to protect the school from someone turning up with a gun and shooting the kids at any point. Fantastic. If only someone had thought of this idea before. Every Republican ever has thought of that idea and saying that's a solution to the problem. However, it contradicts earlier reports that he fired on a school resource officer. So again, confusion about what's true. That'll come back to haunt us. Ramos entered the school at 11:40 a.m., 12 minutes after crashing the truck outside the school and walking towards the campus with an AR-15. That is when police were alerted to the scene. 4 minutes later, at 11:44 a.m., the cops first entered the school.
It's a good response time.
Ramos shot at them, and they retreated. It's unclear if he had if he had already shot kids and teachers in the fourth grade classroom by then, or if he went on to attack them after the cops retreated. It then took an hour for specialized SWAT teams to arrive at 1:06 p.m. The incident was declared over, and Ramos was shot dead. In the meantime, 150...
After Ramos was shot dead.
Sorry, yeah.
He sounded like it was a summary execution.
Yeah, it kind of was. In the meantime, 150 cops were gathering outside. 150.
Wow.
150 cops in the United States. These aren't bobbies on the beat with rubber truncheons.
Jesus.
These are guys with guns. 150.
Wow.
Just stood around for an hour whilst this took place, it seemed. And you might think that's pretty awful, and maybe there's some defense of this. So go to the next one here. We have a visualization of the whole event, which people show. There's some confusion about whether or not he shot at cops in the hallway or not, or what went on there, but we'll get back to that. And then they eventually come in and just shoot the hell out of him, and he's dead. So good on the guys who actually shot him. If we go to the next one, you may remember I mentioned something about a SWAT team. Apparently it was Border Tactical over there. A hero cop rushed into Texas, massacre, school, mid-haircut with borrowed shotgun to rescue 20 kids.
Jesus.
Including his daughter, 8, after wife, who teaches there, texts him saying, "There is an active shooter. Help. I love you."
Wow.
I mean, that's a hell of a headline.
Yeah.
I mean, of all the headlines we've ever read in the show, I mean, that is one, if nothing else. So that's a guy who works at the Border Force, sat getting a haircut, gets a message from his wife who's teaching there, "I love you, please help," grabs the barber's shotgun, and then runs up and saves his daughter and shoots the guy. Or at least is part of the team that went in and shot him.
Wow.
That's amazing. An off-duty Border Patrol agent has told how he evacuated children, including his own 8-year-old daughter, from Robb Elementary School, armed with a shotgun he had grabbed from the barbers as he left and dashed to the site. Albarbaro's friend was the heroic CBP agent who entered the classroom where Salvador Ramos, 18, was holed up and shot him dead. So it was this dude and his mate who did the shooting there. And
Wow.
I think another couple of guys, but the fact they know each other is also just, great. If we go to the next one, there's also some people asking, well, why the hell are border agents there? And it's a fair question. Like, why didn't the local police just deal with this?
Yeah, the school isn't a foreign country, right?
Well, there's a debate in here. A CBP official told Texas Monthly that as emergency calls first came in, 4 agents with CBP's BORTEC SWAT team were investigating stash houses on the border to the west of Uvalde. I don't know how you say it. The agents immediately responded, arriving at the school just before noon, and Bortec, being CBP's paramilitary force, they're amazing at doing this sort of thing, like going in and shooting cartels in confined spaces. Bortec agents not in the SWAT unit will also rush the school for more personnel reasons, the fact that their own children were there, that being the individual we just read out. And again, I'm left with the question, as a lot of people were, well, why the hell didn't the cops just do it? And it seems to be the argument is that these guys are specialized in this, therefore you get them to do it.
Yep.
But in an active shooter situation in which the dude is shooting kids in the head, what the hell? And I'm not the only one to be a bit confused by that. If we go to the next one here, we have the fact that someone posted a story saying cops stood outside the school while the killer rampaged inside. Onlookers yelled at them to go in. They didn't. One parent urged bystanders, quote, "Let's just rush in because the cops aren't doing anything like they're supposed to be." And then the video came out. We go to the next one. We have someone released some of the footage here. And the cops literally stopped the parents from helping their own kids. And if you go to the next one, we have the full footage. It's like 6 minutes long, which you can watch yourself in your own time. But we also play a short clip here, and it is pretty horrific to listen to, so there's your warning. But let's play.
Come on, guys, para, güey. We're shooting. Hey, we got guys going in to get kids, okay? They're working. They're working. I don't have any information.
I know we can't take our kids to a kid's watch to make sure our kids are coming out.
Yeah, so I'm just saying right here. So I'm just saying.
They're worried about keeping their kids on the street.
And as mentioned, that goes on for 6 minutes of just, listening to the mothers there all screeching in pain with obvious reasons. And there's the fact there's also an individual here, a man, as you may have saw at the start, had been forced to the ground by the police. They had plenty of force for him. So they're holding someone's father down from going in and saving his own kid because, don't worry, we got guys going in. I don't know at what point this video was taken in the timeline. However, we do know that in between the police being there and the guy being killed, there's a 1 hour gap. They had to wait for the SWAT guys, presumably, instead of just killing him themselves. There are 150 of them. A ridiculous number. If we go to the next link here, you can see the fact that people have been able to identify parents from the footage of kids who have been killed. So she was there, for example, this mother, as her daughter was killed inside, and the cops all stood around saying, no, don't go in. Don't worry, we're dealing with it. Just wait another 30 minutes, and it'll be dealt with. I ain't got much words, because this is just bloody ridiculous. If we go to the next one, we then have more information, which is one of the mothers was placed in handcuffs by federal marshals on the scene for attempting to enter the school to get her child. Another man was tased for trying to get his kid off a bus. Why? What the hell's wrong with you? But there we have it. I mean, the state are not there to protect you. They're not there to protect your kids. They're not protecting any of us. They're there for their own purposes. If we go to the next one here, we can see the Daily Mail article with the more information about all of this, which gives us at least one example of someone who is there to protect the kids, which is one of the mums. Unarmed. Whereas the armed police, no. Liable to do it. The police were doing nothing. Uvalde police handcuffed and pepper-sprayed parents who urged them to storm the school, including the dad of a murdered girl and a mum of two who got free, jumped the fence, and rescued the kids herself.
Wow.
Who cares about your kids? You. That's it.
The state doesn't.
No, not in the slightest. I mean, we've gone through it in the Great Famine, where the kiddos were all given over to the state to be taken care of, and the kids just end up dying en masse because the people who were in charge of taking care of them didn't care in the slightest about their own deaths because they were more important things like themselves. And it's the same with the police, it seems, from the evidence. Quote, the police were doing nothing, Angeli Rose Gomez told the Wall Street Journal. They were just standing outside the fence. They weren't going in there or running anywhere. Gomez has 2 children in 2nd and 3rd grade, and she reportedly drove 40 miles to the school after hearing of the attack. She was one of the desperate parents who engaged police with increasing urgency to enter the school. Eventually, federal marshals put Gomez in handcuffs and told her she was under arrest for intervening in an active investigation. I mean, just the use of force was used on the parents, not the killer to go and get the killer.
Yeah.
Because she turned up and wanted her kids. She was the one who had to be dealt with. That's where they had the armed officers, not in the school. Amazing. Gomez said she was able to convince one of the officers, whom she knew, to have the marshal free her, and she took the opportunity to move away from the crowd, jump the school fence, and ran inside the school, where she rescued the children herself. I mean, I don't have anything, because frankly, it's just evident. Who cares about the kids? Her. She cares about her kids. How much did those cops care about the kids? Well, none. They were arresting her for trying to save them. And then she had to run in and get them herself. Angel Garcia, whose daughter was killed, was handcuffed after trying to run into the school when he heard that a girl called Marie had been shot, which is her girl. So she found out that her daughter had been shot, tried to run into the school. Police arrested her. I mean, there's a lot of things to be said for, the obvious points. I don't know anything about law enforcement, but I do know some things, which is that you're meant to create a perimeter in these kind of circumstances. You want it clear so you don't end up getting someone killed. Doesn't need to be all the rest of it. I'm sure there are things to be said there. But when you're waiting an hour with an active shooter and you don't just go in and kill the guy, instead of doing that, you spend your time stopping the parents from doing anything. I mean, something's gone really, really wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the other aspect. I don't know who the hell makes this decision. Because it can't be the officers on the ground, surely. Like, the guys stood there with their rifles, presumably thinking someone's dealing with it. I mean, otherwise, the hell's wrong with them? Very simple things you would have thought. No. If we go to the next one, we can see the cops tried to defend this circumstance in an initial interview. This was CNN, in which some representative here says that, well, there's a reason we didn't go in, which is we could have been shot at. Yeah. It's kind of a decision you make when you join the police force, you would have thought, in the United States. Let's play the clip.
But don't current best practices, Lieutenant, call for officers to disable a shooter as quickly as possible, regardless of how many officers are actually on site?
Correct. The active shooter situation, you want to stop the killing, you want to preserve life, but also one thing that, of course, the American people need to understand is that officers are making entry into this building. They do not know where the gunman is. They are hearing gunshots. They are receiving gunshots. At that point, if they proceeded any further, not knowing where this suspect was at, they could have been shot. They could have been killed. And at that point, that gunman would have the opportunity to kill other people inside that school. So they were able to contain that gunman inside that classroom so that he was not able to go to any other portions of the school to commit any other killings.
That's the defense from the police there, which is, in his words, they were able to keep the gunman in one classroom killing kids instead of going into other classrooms. That statement's going to be denied by the police force later on, which is amazing. Well, apparently that's not the case, is the debate. If we go to the next one here, we can see the fact that even the leftists are picking up on how obvious this is. So you've got Vice News pointing out that the police timeline of the Texas shooting has a lot of holes. And they say, eventually, those officers were responsible for containing the gunman in a classroom, McCall said. This is about the argument that individual just mentioned, which is, oh no, we had police officers there that were keeping him in the room so that he couldn't kill others. He was just killing the ones in that one classroom. Heroically, they kept them there. However, spokesman for the Texas Department of Public Safety had repeatedly told news outlets earlier that the suspect barricaded himself in the classroom and then immediately started shooting. So in which case, your officers had no impact whatsoever. They weren't doing that. And have you just made that up because you've realized what happened? And now you look like the worst people on the planet, frankly. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them. I guess we'll see. There's also then the horrific detail, which is that the parents were stopped, of course, from going in and getting their kids, except the ones who were able to break through and did do a heroic thing in saving their own kids. Whereas if we go to the next link here, there's accusations that the police went in and saved their own kids from the school and blocked the parents from doing the same in that hour gap. Let's play this interview in which the interviewer asks about this.
So first I want to acknowledge the brave men and women of law enforcement that showed up to the scene, that actually were involved in the scene, that actually made entry into this school and saved more lives. That, of course, we lost 18. But I want to praise those brave men and women of law enforcement. Also, offer our condolences on behalf of Texas Department of Public Safety to the families, to the victims, and the entire Uvalde community.
And we've also heard word that Border Patrol agent was struck with gunfire, a few officers shot. We've heard that some law enforcement officers actually went into school to get their kids kids out. Can you talk about that?
Right. So what we do know, Vanessa, right now that there was some police officers, families trying to get their children out of the school because it was an active shooter situation right now. It's a terrible situation right now. And of course, just as we mentioned, the loss of life, it's just terrible. It's a terrible tragedy right now that took place. But again, we got to keep acknowledging those brave men and women that actually were there on scene.
So in his own words, there were officers on site trying to get their kids out. Their kids.
Wow.
I mean, I don't know how to get... I mean, we talked about it before. Tim Paul's talked about it endlessly, which is the state won't protect you. You are the only one to protect you and your family. And I don't think it can be more starkly shown than the evidence so far that we have from the shooting, which is there are a million people who say a million things about mass shootings, and there's a whole conversation to be had there, of course. But in this specific incident, we actually have some incredible failures on a level I don't think we've ever seen in the United States. Just the police standing by, 150 of them, all armed, whilst the shooter goes ahead and kills more kids because what? Because you don't want to go in there. That's presumably the answer. Or someone didn't want to send them in there. Guess we'll find out. There's also another horrific detail, which apparently they were incompetent right to the end. So let's read this. When cops came, this is from an account of one of the kids who's in the classroom, hiding, in silence, of course. When the cops came, a cop said, "Yell if you need help." And one of the person in my class said, "Help." The guy overheard, and he came in and shot her, as in the shooter. Heard a kid yell out help and then shot the kid. The cops barged into the classroom, the guy shot at the cop, and then the cops started shooting. Presumably that's when Ramos was killed. Right to the end, completely incompetent. Just yell out help if you need help. Some kid yells out help, obviously, and they get that kid killed. Just with their own stupidity. I can't get over it. I mean, I've not served in law enforcement or anything, but there'll be many people in the Zoom call, as I mentioned, who I want to talk to about this, because I don't understand. I mean, what the hell is wrong with you? That you haven't got the shooter, just start yelling out to the kids, "Oh, do you need help?" Of course, he's going to come and shoot them if they yell out. You would have thought. It would have been something in their mind. If you go to the next one as well, we then have the fact that it's not just the public who are utterly confused by this shearing... I mean, incompetence is one part, obviously. I don't know if you call it malice or just neglect of their own duties, but the authorities now confirm they're examining the response of the police into the shooting, and amid conflicting witness statements, including what steps they took to actually stop the gunman. And this is part of a review, as he says, into the timeline and the fact of the radio traffic as well, because there's huge confusion about whether or not when he first came in, did he actually shoot at police officers or not? Did he run into anyone or not? That's not even confirmed yet. There are conflicting statements on that from the police. There are conflicting statements about whether or not they barricaded him in or he barricaded himself in. Why? You would have thought that would have been an easy thing to knock down by now. But no, apparently not. Officials said a school officer and a gunman exchanged fire on Wednesday night. They said that they could no longer confirm this initial report. "We will stay with this to fully understand what happens," that individual says there. And then, of course, that's the story. That's really it, which is that the state won't protect you in the absolute slightest. They won't protect your kids in the absolute slightest. Why would they? They've got no duty to your kids. They don't know your kids. They don't know you. And this isn't new either. I mean, this is just the most horrific example in modern day I think we can find of, well, let's just wait now. Why? We'll wait for the SWAT. Well, he's killing kids. Yeah, but I could get shot at. Yeah, you're an American police officer. I mean, again, I don't know, but I would have thought that would have been the first thing you think of when you sign up to become a police officer in the United States. Is, yeah, I'm going to be shot at because this is the United States. I mean, you see endless dash cam footage of even like traffic cops getting engaged in gun battles. So, but then we'll go to the politicians, of course, because the politicians have got something to say, which is how can I get more power? And that's all they ever bloody think about. Right. So let's go through them. So you can see this one here. So you have Greg Abbott holding a press conference with sheriffs about the situation to give evidence of what happened. And then Beto O'Rourke turns up and is like, "My time to shine." He just starts standing up saying, "This is your fault," this to try and make a situation in which he can get fame, frankly. I don't know why the hell else he did this. And then one of the sheriffs in the audience even calls him a sick SOB for it. Which, yeah, that seems like the right thing to do. The hell's the matter with you? Yeah, let me make this my moment. This is all about me. Okay. If we go to the next one here as well, we also have Andy No pointing out that a bunch of leftists then fell for rumors that Greg Abbott offered money for the parents to pose next to him in photos.
Okay.
Some rando just made this up out of thin air because, you know, it's the internet. And every verified check mark and their mum fell for it. Being like, well, this is definitely true. How dare he? I was like, just making up rumors. Okay. Gauging in more fake news, as you usually do. And don't forget the next one we have, as we featured yesterday, AOC, who had to make this moment about Ha as well. Presumably before she found out his name was Ramos. And claimed it was all about white supremacy and white domestic terrorism. I mean, it's just pathetic, but it's not the worst one. There is the worst one, which is Obama.
Okay.
Had something to say. I don't know if you've seen this. Barack Obama. As we grieve the children of Uvalde today, we should take time to recognize that 2 years have passed since the murder of George Floyd.
Oh, hang on. Where's my hip flask? It's George Floyd again.
What is the connection? I mean, name the connection between George Floyd and this shooting.
I don't know. Police incompetence?
I mean, the police didn't seem to have killed George Floyd from the evidence, so if that's your argument, but then Obama didn't know that at the time either. I mean, the only link is I can get power out of this, isn't there? It's just how can I use this to push my agenda in the simplest fashion possible? Is the shooter white? White supremacy's to blame. Okay, he's not white. Where's the guns? How about we get rid of the Second Amendment? I mean, it's like an NPC. NPC politics. And, well, or it's just, is he black? Well, therefore, white supremacy again, as he mentions, that we must think of George Floyd in this troubled time. Presumably, he'll be saying this to the parents if he goes and visits them. Now, I know your son has been shot, but, you know, think of George Floyd. I mean, could you imagine him doing that?
Oof, I'd like to be a fly on the wall in that conversation.
I mean, what else is this tweet? And then we have Shillery, because of course Shillery has to turn up.
Me, she's still out.
It's the guns. It's all the guns. It's as simple a narrative as it is because he wasn't white. If he was white, they'd just be saying, well, it's white supremacy. We all know this. It's not a debate about what on earth comes out of their mouths. And then we obviously have the fact, and we go to the next one. It's just the fact of international homicides, 100,000 people. United States actually doing pretty well compared to all the countries.
Yeah.
Her graph as well, she specifically, well, Vox, who made it, decided to count out every country that wasn't white or Asian.
Interesting.
Don't know why, but let's leave that there for now. And then we'll go to the last thing here, a message by Tim Paul I saw that had been put up. I'm going to buy more guns today. Someone responds, I'm an Australian and I would like to ask, why do you need guns? And someone responds, so we don't get locked in camps for having a virus with a 99.9% survivability rate. And, you know, it's a pretty usual dunk, but it's also just, yeah, why do Americans need their guns? Well, it's because the state won't protect you in the absolute slightest. You know, a friend of mine from school sent me a meme earlier. And it's some NPC watching the news, and the news goes, you know, mass shooting happens. And it's just like, well, clearly I need to give up my guns because the state will keep me safe from this. Like, no, there's more mass shootings. You need to be safe. Like, if there had been an armed officer stopping the guy from coming in, shooting the guy, then what wouldn't have happened? If the police had walked forward and shot the guy, wouldn't have happened. But no, that didn't happen instead. They didn't. Great police, wonderful guys. And if we go to the next one here, we also have the fact that just this is as old as time, it seems. This is a story, if you haven't watched it, it's from Cracked. And it's a guy who was on the New York subway. There was some lunatic out there who had been stabbing a bunch of people. Got on the subway. He didn't know. So he's just like, weird, but New York subway. And he starts bashing on the engineer's door to be like, let me in. Presumably to stab the engineer to death. And there's two cops who knew that all this was taking place, and they were waiting for him to turn up. They're armed with pistols. And then they say, well, you're not coming in. So he says, fine. Turns around with his knife and starts stabbing that bystander. And the bystander is able to tussle with him and get him on the ground, not before being stabbed in the skull multiple times, hand, chest. And at that point, that's where this freeze frame is, which is after he's able to get him on the ground and disarmed after being stabbed multiple times. Only then do the two armed police officers come out from behind the glass and arrest the guy. Because they're not there to protect you.
No.
In the slightest. That's not their job. He took them to court over this twice. And both times it got all the way to the court, and the court heard all the events and went, yeah, that's horrible. But they don't actually have any duty to protect you. And he lost twice in court. Because that's the reality of it. The police don't have a duty to protect you. That seems to be it. So who is going to protect you and your family? Well, the cops, it's you. It's you. And how are you going to do it? Well, frankly, this is why I find the attack on guns in response to this so blisteringly stupid and pathetic. It's like, no, if you're going to defend your family from someone with a gun, you need a gun. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was depressing. But that's the news, which is just looking at the evidence we have. That's the situation. I look forward to talking to people on the Gold Tier Zoom call about that specifically. And just asking them, look, what the hell has happened there? If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content on the site, such as the Politics of Four Lions premium video between John and Carl. And if you want to follow what else John's putting out, you can follow him on Getter at John Wheatley on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.